McLaren have effectively stopped bringing upgrades to this year's car. Red Bull, meanwhile, have kept the tap open. Small packages, but enough to sharpen Max Verstappen's knife just when the fight is getting hand-to-hand. That's the tension this video rides. The team that already banked the Constructors' crown choosing stability, while their Drivers' Championship suddenly gets noisier, messier, and a lot more Max-shaped. Let's anchor the facts before we spin the story. Team principal Andrea Stella has been clear. McLaren won't introduce more upgrades or new parts for the rest of the season. The focus is shifting to 2026, and the message he keeps pushing is confidence. The driver's title remains in McLaren's hands if they execute. On paper, that reads calm, grown-up, even wise, in the pressure cooker of a three-way title run-in. It's also a gamble. You freeze development. You bet your current pace is enough in every type of weekend still to come. And while McLaren look like the best all-round operation of the year, Verstappen just cut his deficit to Oscar Piastri to a number you can erase in a fortnight. He's won 3 of the last 4 and looks like, well, 2023 Max again. Now, what about the other side of the garage doors? Red Bull's messaging since Monza has flipped from searching to reborn. A new floor there, tweaks that followed, and, crucially, an organizational reset in how they run the car across a weekend have made the RB feel calmer, friendlier, more predictable for Verstappen. Senior advisor Helmut Marko said it flatly. It feels like a rebirth. He's also admitted they're close to running out of upgrades, as attention turns to 2026, but in the same breath flagged, Red Bull are still drip-feeding minor updates that matter at the margins. That's exactly where championships are decided, and yes, there's been talk of another one up our sleeve at various points this run-in. One more package here, a tweak there. Depending on who you listen to, that's at least one more upgrade in the pipeline. Potentially more. The verified part is simple. Red Bull didn't stop. They kept iterating after Monza, found a sweeter window on setup and tire life, and the scoreboard reflects it. Verstappen looks like himself again. Calm voice on the radio, ruthless in middle stints, allergic to drama. That's not flashy, it's fatal. So is McLaren shooting themselves in the foot? Not automatically. Stella's argument is that pace is already there. He pointed to Austin as a reassuring race on raw speed. Lando Norris had the legs to win it on merit if the afternoon wasn't complicated by fights with Charles Leclerc, and without the sprint shunt that robbed both McLarens of data. Translation: execute cleanly, and the title is still papaya-colored. It's a compelling case, until you remember how thin the margins are when another elite team keeps finding tiny gains. What about Zach Brown? His line has been the same for weeks. Don't change the team rules. Don't flinch because Max is charging. Don't coronate a number 1. That's noble and risky. He's also been explicit that Verstappen remains a live threat, which is as close as you'll get to a warning label on a papaya. The purpose of those comments is obvious. Keep the garage united, keep the drivers' fight clean, and prevent the constructors' win from turning into drivers' chaos. In reality, every pit window coin flip between Norris and Piastri now lands like politics, especially if you're no longer adding performance to cushion strategy variance. Here's the narrative nobody in Woking wants on Monday. We stopped. They didn't. When the clocks run out in Abu Dhabi, that story either looks smart, cool heads, perfect execution, double crowns, or like a case study in momentum management. Because while you freeze a car, you also freeze the perception inside the cockpit. If a driver feels the other garage got the better undercut window, or radio priority, or a friendlier stint plan, the absence of fresh parts becomes part of the grievance. No new toys? Every grey call gets bigger, and that's where Piastri risks becoming the most exposed player in all this. He's the championship leader who benefits most from status quo pace and clean Sundays, and the one who loses most if the title turns into a grind of micro gains from a resurgent Red Bull. He's also the guy who's raised his eyebrow most audibly on the radio this autumn. If your model is no upgrades, perfect execution, then the execution piece has to be exquisite. Strategy symmetry when possible, absolute clarity on who pits first when both are in the same window, and zero confusion on lap 1 etiquette between teammates. Otherwise, you're handing Max free oxygen. Meanwhile, Norris has the art of damage limitation down cold, and on many Saturdays, the bigger one-lap punch. Depending on components mileage and where he is in his power unit cycle, he may also be enjoying a slightly fresher feeling at certain tracks, enough to turn a P3 car into a P2 into a late race lunge. That matters because McLaren's no more upgrade stance assumes its current car is good everywhere. It's excellent almost everywhere. On the odd weekend, where bumps or curbs make it finicky, not adding performance means minimizing mistakes is the only buffer you've got. Now zoom out to the calendar and why this storyline bites. Mexico rewards launch discipline and race pace patience. Brazil is a chaos amplifier with weather and safety cars. Vegas is cold, slippery theater where tire warm-up rewrites form guides. Qatar is a heat and tire wear exam. Abu Dhabi is part strategy chess, part political gravity. None of those rounds require Red Bull to be the fastest every lap. They require them to be the best at Sundays. Post Monza, that's exactly where the blue car has looked alive again. Let's press on the title swing mechanics in simple terms. If McLaren's two drivers keep trading positions and stealing points from each other, Red Bull doesn't need a sledgehammer, just a scalpel. Verstappen's brief is boring but brutal. Qualify within range. Own the first pit window. Undercut or overcut, whichever hurts Papaya more. Keep tires alive in clean air. And let third cars, Ferraris, Mercedes, steal bonus points from whichever McLaren he doesn't beat. That's exactly how his post-Monza run looks. Consistent, unspectacular on the surface, devastating on the spreadsheet. Quick pit lane stop. If you live for this kind of inside-the-garage storytelling, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments. Is McLaren right to freeze upgrades now, or are they handing momentum to Max? Your take drives the next deep dive. Back to the chessboard. Stella's tone is deliberately steady. No panic, no big swings. Keep maximizing what we already have. The title is still ours if we execute. That's smart culture building, and it fits a team that just won back-to-back Constructors titles. But it sits against Marco's tone, which is all appetite. The car's happier, the driver's lethal again. Everything is possible. One voice is managing heat, the other is stoking it. Somewhere in the middle is the trophy. Where does Zach Brown land if this stays tight into the last 2 weekends? He's already said he won't tear up the papaya rules. No public number one. Let them race. Keep it clean. The question is whether keep it clean needs teeth. If there's teammate contact or a lap 1 shove that flips track position, can you really say, we'll review later again, when Max is within striking distance? Brown has also talked down the dynasty talk and hammered the week-to-week execution mantra. That's the right drumbeat, but fans don't hear drumbeats when they're staring at delta times. They see who pits first, who gets the preferred offset, and who walks onto the podium with the bigger smile. So, does freezing updates equal a self-inflicted wound? It can, if the team's operational game isn't flawless, and if Red Bull's mini upgrades keep landing. It can also look genius if McLaren's base car remains the all-track reference, and they avoid self-harm. The uncomfortable truth is that both things can be true, depending on whether the next safety car, undercut window, or turn 1 knife edge breaks your way. That's how thin this is. Here's my bottom line. McLaren's car is still a monster, especially in Norris's hands when the weekend rhythm clicks. And they absolutely have the pace to beat Red Bull without more parts. But titles are rarely decided by the biggest single step. They're decided by 10 tiny edges compounded over 6 Sundays. Right now, Red Bull are still adding tiny edges. McLaren are choosing to bank theirs. That doesn't decide the story. Execution will. What it does is tighten the wire Oscar Piastri has to walk, No new toys, no margin for error, and a teammate who is relentlessly quick. If there's a single driver who gets squeezed first by this strategy, it's the one with the points lead and the fewest places to hide. And that's why, even with the Constructors' trophy already engraved, this fight feels like it's just getting started. Freeze versus feed, calm versus hunger, process versus pressure. If McLaren keeps Sundays clean, they can still write the double. If they blink while Max keeps collecting, the story you'll hear in the cool-down room in Abu Dhabi will be simple. They stopped. He didn't.